There's a reason why Italian wines are some of the top sellers in the world, because quality is timeless, and Italy makes some of the best out there. I love introducing people to amazing quality wines at the best prices, and even better if they're from somewhere unique that most people wouldn't normally look at. For this weekly tasting, we're going to the northeastern limits of Italy, and keeping the warmer weather in mind, we're going to take a look at two of their best white wines. And when we're done, I think that this region and its wines are going to be your new semi-secret go-to. Ask any wine lover to name a famous Italian wine region, and they're probably going to say Tuscany. Today, I want to turn you on to a place in the far northeastern corner of the country, a relatively unknown region called Friuli, Venezia-Giulia. Friuli, as it's more commonly known, is quite literally the eastern limits of Italy, and it's the last stop before you cross over the border into either Austria or Slovenia. And no surprise, the land is a melting pot of Italian, Germanic, and Slavic cultures. The people here speak 3 different languages, including the local tongue, Friulian. In Friuli, they say "a bon pro" as a toast. A bon pro. Where Friuli hugs the Alps in the north, the region is temperate and cool. And closer to the Adriatic Sea in the south, it's more Mediterranean. Several major rivers deposit a soil of clay, silt, and river rocks known as grave, which you'll notice called out on this one bottle here. Together, these characteristics make Friuli perfect for producing unique white wines. Because this region was at a crossroads for so many different tribes, there's a real treasure trove of different grapes that were brought here. There are over 20 different grapes that are used in this region. Some of them you're already familiar with, and some maybe not so much. Pinot Grigio is actually the French Pinot Gris and originates in the Burgundy region of France. It came to Italy in the 19th century and is now one of the most consumed white wines in the world. The problem is that a lot of Italian Pinot Grigio is mass-produced and not really that good. In Friuli, most wine producers are much smaller and often family-owned. This means much higher quality boutique-level wines. Pinot Grigio from Friuli tends to be more smooth and silky. In my opinion, I think it drinks more like a German wine than it does an Italian, and maybe we'll see that in the tasting. Ribolla Gialla is an ancient grape, and it's indigenous to this part of the world. The word Gialla actually means yellow and describes the color of the grapes and the wine too. Ribolla was first mentioned in texts dating back to the 13th century, but was almost completely lost to history due to the ravages of an insect known as phylloxera. Ribolla was almost completely wiped out by this pest, and at the turn of the 20th century represented only 1% of the entire vineyard acreage in Friuli. It took a concerted effort on the part of several winemakers from this region to save Ribolla Gialla from the brink of extinction, and today you'll be glad they did. The Fossa estate was originally built in the 1600s and is now a luxury villa, complete with a restaurant, winery, and even horse stables. It's owned by the Roncadin family, who are famous for their Italian pizza empire. But of course, in Italy, wine and food go hand in hand, so it's no real surprise they became winemakers too. So now that we've located Friuli on the map and we know a little bit about the region itself, let's taste the wines. So let's taste this Pinot Grigio and see if we can detect some nuances that are specific to the Friuli region. And this Pinot Grigio comes from the Grave del Friuli region, which was carved out by alpine rivers and is now covered with gravel and sand, hence the name. The grapes for this wine are cold harvested, and the wine is fermented in stainless steel tanks to maintain that fresh and clean character. It's yeasty and smoky, definitely some apple and peach in there too. All right, let's give it a taste. It's crisp and acidic. It's got a nice body to it, and there's a lot of apple and lime peel in there. And the wine is aged sur lie, which means that it was aged on the yeast, which gives it a creamy sort of texture. There is a hickory smoke finish on there, which I think comes from partial barrel fermenting. It's a lot more thick and rich, which makes it almost feel more like a German-style wine. If you love Pinot Grigio but are looking to step up to something a little bit more high quality, maybe something a little more full-bodied and rich, this is the best of both worlds. Okay, let's try something really unique. This is an ancient and indigenous grape to the Friuli region, known as Ribolla Gialla. And this Ribolla Gialla comes from the IGT subregion of Venezia-Giulia, which constitutes the easternmost part of Friuli. Now here the soil is known as ponca, which contains ancient seashells that supposedly give the wine a creamy minerality. As we discussed earlier, Gialla means yellow, and you can see here in this glass the wine is pretty yellow. This is also cold fermented, which is pretty common for white wines in the region, and winemakers do that to retain the aromatics and also make sure that the wine stays fresh and clean. Wow, the wine is very pungent and floral. There's sort of a musky characteristic there, and it's also very herbal too. Time to drink. There's an intense pear and apple character in here, but I think stronger in melon, sort of like a blend between honeydew and cantaloupe. There's an interesting tannic element to the finish, which could come from some skin contact. One of the many reasons why I love drinking great wine is because it transports you to both a time and a place. This truly ancient grape from the Friuli region is like a time machine in a bottle. And we can't talk about Italian wine unless we mention food as well, so let's talk about some pairings. And this is another one of those instances where the flavor profiles of these wines are pretty similar, so I think they can be interchangeable with the dishes, but I am going to make specific recommendations. Let's start with the pesto grilled cheese on sourdough. Creamy cheese dishes are a huge part of Germanic culture, and after all, Friuli has a huge Germanic influence. So the sharpness of both wines will balance well with the rich cheesiness, but I'm more inclined to suggest the Ribolla Gialla since it has an herbal character that may bring out the pesto. How about some baked stuffed clams with pecorino cheese, herbs, and lemon zest? Pinot Grigio is a great partner for seafood, and in this case we have a more full-bodied Pinot Grigio and some complex flavors in those clams with the pecorino and the herbs. I love showing people wines that are high quality, great value, and of course different. And it's even better when there's a fun story behind them. I think we've ticked off all those boxes here with these wines from Friuli. But of course, what's most important is that they're enjoyable to drink. At the end of the day, how it makes you feel is everything. Thanks for joining me today, and arrivederci. Goodbye.